Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Steve Creasy, and I'd like to welcome back our co-host from California. How are you doing today, Chris?
Doing pretty good, Steve. How about you?
You sound pretty chipper today. It's Monday.
The days are blending together. Is it Monday? Is it a Friday? Who knows?
It's just Groundhog Day. So I tell you what, why don't we talk some Disney Cruise Line?
Yeah, that's the best thing.
Yeah, let's get out of off our little quarantine islands and talk a little Disney Cruise Line. We'd like to welcome to the show today Tanya from North Carolina. How are you doing today, Tanya?
I'm doing great.
Well, thanks so much for reaching out. I know it's been a while. We've been going back and forth. High stakes negotiations trying to figure out when to get you scheduled up to do this interview.
Yep. I'm glad we got it worked out.
Yeah. So a little bit different today. I think we're going to approach this a little bit differently. Rather than the, step by step how you guys did your cruise, we are going to talk about your cruise, the one that you guys did lately in February with a large group.
Yeah, we did take it with a large group. It was with my parents, who are in their early 60s, and then my husband, myself, and our 3 kids who are 17, 11, and 10.
So before we jump into it, give us a little bit of your Disney background. Are you guys Walt Disney World goers? How did you find Disney Cruise Line? Give us a little bit of the history.
I was born and raised in Southern California and spent my life going to Disneyland. And then I moved to the East Coast. I had never been to Disney World at all. And when my now 17-year-old was about 6 months old, which in hindsight, I can't believe I did this, but I was like, let's try Disney World in July. It was so overwhelming and amazing, and I couldn't wait to go back. And now we go all the time. We're DVC members and annual pass holders. We love it.
So Disneyland, and then you found Disney World. I, of course, being from Southern California, am also a Disneyland person. At least I started there, but I definitely see the magic and charm of Disney World. How often do you go?
So in the beginning, I did have to drag my husband to Disney World because he didn't really understand why everyone loved going to Disney World. And within a couple of months of coming back, he was like, I want to go back. I really miss it. That's when we decided we at that point, we started going about once a year. And I would say now we probably go 3 or 4 times a year.
Where do you live right now?
We live in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's anywhere from an 8.5 hour drive to a 9.5 hour drive, depending on how many breaks we take for the kids.
But you do always drive. You've never flown in?
No, we fly. It honestly just kind of depends on how long we're staying, how much luggage we plan to take, and what the airline ticket prices look like. We usually fly Southwest, and they have a direct flight. It's probably an hour and 20 minutes to fly there. It completely depends on when, the more last minute we plan, the more likely we are to drive.
Makes sense.
I was kind of wondering if you'd have that question about Disneyland versus Disney World, Chris, because I know that Disneyland is near and dear to your heart.
Well, it is. I can see the charm of Disney World, but I think Disneyland is always going to be my forever favorite.
Disneyland is very near and dear to my heart. Even when I graduated high school, which I don't even know if they do this anymore.
Grad night.
Yes, I went to grad night, and I have this treasured Mickey with a cap and gown on that has the year I graduated, and it's just we went all the time, from the time I was about 2 years old. So Disneyland is very near and dear to me, but we don't live close to Disneyland. We live
right. It's much harder to get to LA than it is to go down to Florida.
It is, and even driving to the port is very easy for us. Also, I think Disney World is just so huge. And that was what was so surprising to me the first time I went. It's just so huge, you can never fit it all in.
That is true. It is much larger than Disneyland.
Well, you guys went on this cruise in the Fantasy. Now, I know you've been on Halloween on the High Seas cruise before. How many cruises have you been on with Disney?
That was our third cruise. So the funny thing is we weren't sure we'd be cruise people. And and so we decided we would just do a 3-day cruise and see how we liked it. And we just fell madly in love with Disney cruising. And it was the first cruise either of us, my husband or myself, had ever been on. And while I do think 3 days is a very short cruise, I think it was a really perfect, like, dipping our toe in the water, because we are used to, like, always going at Disney World. So it wasn't really like we knew what sea days were or relaxing on a vacation looked like. We had no idea. So
Right.
it was completely fine for us. Of course, once you're at the port and you're an annual pass holder, you're like, we have to go to Disney World because we're so close. So that's what we did. And then right away, I was like booking another cruise on the way home, in the car on the way home.
So what was it about Disney Cruise Line that just drew you in? Was it the sea days, the ports, just the whole experience?
It was really, I think that the cruise ship is so romantic and magical. I mean, the big circle windows. And when I was a kid, I remember going on the Queen Mary and all of the old wood paneling that was in there. And it just made me feel like a kid again, I guess. We just absolutely adored every part of it. I think it's such an amazing experience to walk in and have them call your name, and they've got the big chandelier and the beautiful carpet and the staircase, and everybody's waiting to just help you have a great time.
Hey, Chris, have you been on the Queen Mary before?
I have been on a ghost tour on the Queen Mary, so Christy would love. They have this thing with the Queen Mary where it's like, you know, it's supposedly one of the most haunted blah, blah, blahs or whatever, but they have a ton of ghost tours that you can go on. But the cool thing about that is it's also a working hotel. Like, there are things that you can do on it as like just a tour for the day, but you can also stay there overnight. So it's fun. I will say that it is showing how old it is. And it's probably not anywhere near the polish and sheen of a Disney cruise, but it is old timey and fun to do if you ever have a little bit of extra time in Long Beach.
Yeah, and when I was there, it was probably 30 years ago.
Right.
So you went there when you were 2. Wow, that was...
Yeah.
That's
right.
I think you hit on a great point there. I think the ships are such a huge draw for a lot of people to keep coming back. I mean, I know, Chris, you've been on Norwegian. Tanya, I'm not sure if you've been on any other. I mean, Norwegian ships are beautiful, but it feels like you're staying at a Hilton. And there's just something about the Disney ships that they feel homey. There's just something magical about them.
Agree.
So, well, let's jump into your cruise this time, Tanya. So you guys decided to do a 7-day Eastern Caribbean on the Fantasy. It happened to be a Star Wars Day at Sea. And you've got your grandparents, the 2 of you, and your kids. How did you guys pick this cruise? What was kind of the process with a big group like that? Did you guys all get together and decide on it? Or were you the main planner? Or how did that work for you guys, Tanya?
Yeah, I'm definitely the main planner. I'm the one who spends like the Mad Hatter, just sort of like diving in and jumping through all the itineraries and taking notes and dates and what to do and learning about the different ports and excursions. So I'm the planner, and we wanted a longer cruise, and we wanted to go out of Port Canaveral, and we knew we wanted to invite my parents to come along. So the deciding factor was we were looking at the Western Caribbean and the Eastern Caribbean, and decided on the Eastern Caribbean because it had so many sea days. And we figured that with fewer ports, there would be less chaos and hustle with such a large group and such a big age gap, because again, my parents are in their 60s and my kids are 17, 11, and 10, or the ones at home anyway. We have 2 adult children. That was really the deciding factor, was the fewer ports, and then the time of year. We really wanted it to not be extremely overly hot. So February just seemed like a really good time for us.
And once you decided on that date and that sailing, did you guys get together as a group to kind of talk about it? Did you bring your parents in, or did you just go, "Hey, show up at this day and we'll figure it out"? But how did you guys kind of do that? I know you didn't do that, but how did you guys do it with them?
Almost. It was almost like that. We
Okay.
narrowed it down. We narrowed it down to what worked for really best for our family, but with them in mind, and then said, "Hey, this is the cruise that we want to take. Do you want to join and come with us?" I mean, it was like an instant. My parents have cruised before, even though we're newer to cruising. So they were like, absolutely, we want to go.
I mean, Chris just books cruises and doesn't tell Seth. So
I try. Doesn't work or has yet to work.
somehow he found out about that.
Yeah.
You know how they find out is because the cruise app, if you log back into the cruise app, they can see it.
Yep. And the mail. There's just too many tricky ways for anybody to find out. Disney's like, this is too large of a purchase for you to hide from somebody.
Yeah, because I booked the Magic in May, the one that got canceled, and that was for my husband's birthday. It was a surprise. And then as soon as he logged into the app, he was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, man."
Thwarted. So we booked the Eastern as well, probably for similar reasons to you. Our Eastern, though, stopped in San Juan, and I don't think yours did. Yours did St. Thomas and
Tortola.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know, the big difference between the Western and the Eastern is that the Eastern basically has 3 port stops, one of which is always Castaway, and then it typically stops in St. Thomas and Tortola. The Western has 4 port stops, and that is typically a stop in Jamaica, a stop at Grand Cayman, a stop in Mexico, and obviously Castaway. So the itineraries swap out one of those port stops for a sea day. And that's why folks who like the extra sea day will opt for the Eastern oftentimes, because you get that extra day at sea.
Yeah, and I honestly wasn't sure that I would really love the sea days because I really like to go all the time, go. But man,
Right.
I really did love those sea days.
Well, the nice thing about a sea day is if you want to go on the ship, you can, but you can also relax, which, is my favorite pastime.
Yes, that's my husband's favorite pastime too.
After doing the Mediterranean, we did the Mediterranean where it was one sea day, just ports. Our next one after that was the Fantasy and the Eastern, and I was so looking for. We just loved those 3 sea days. It was kind of nice to actually take a cruise where you weren't going crazy the whole time. So you know what? Let's put the ports in front of the ship before we even get down to Port Canaveral. How did you guys decide what you wanted to do? So you had Tortola, St. Thomas, and then obviously Castaway Cay on this one. Did you guys did you guys decide to do everything as a group? Did you split up? What were your plans for the ports?
Mm-hmm. We did everything as a group, and the hardest part about this cruise was selecting the excursions, because I wanted something that would allow for us to go snorkeling and also really just sort of cater to us the whole day, because I didn't want to have to plan a bunch of things on each day. And I sat down with my mom and asked her, did she have a priority? And she was like, whatever you pick is fine. So I really picked the excursions that picked us up, they were Disney excursions that took us to specific snorkeling locations and then took us to a beach where the kids could play and would feed us lunch and then bring us back.
So the first port you would have stopped in would probably have been St. Thomas, right? Or was it Tortola?
It was Tortola. I was surprisingly impressed and really liked Tortola a lot.
I think I've heard that before. Chris? Sorry.
I think that Tortola is one of the most beautiful islands that has ever existed.
Me too. And I don't know why. I guess I had the impression that it wasn't a favorite over the two ports, but I really love Tortola.
Well, yeah, the towering mountainous island that's green and lush, and you can see all the islands around it. It's gorgeous.
And it didn't seem honestly, really overly touristy, if that's the correct term.
No, you're absolutely right. There are no chains or common department stores or anything like that on the island. It's very much its own thing.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. And we did the Jost Van Dyke, like all day excursion, and which was an amazing excursion. Like the guides were fun and entertaining and friendly. There was the sea was really kind of rocky, and so there was a change for the way we got to the beach. They were going to pull up and then bring us up in boats, but instead we had to take like an open air bus. I use quotation marks on that because it was really like the back of a truck with steps that went into the back of the truck, but it was really cool. They made sure that my parents had a place to sit up at the front so they didn't have to stand and wait in the line for the truck. It was a fantastic excursion.
So your parents snorkeled then too? And how were, I guess, what did the whole, so you got on the bus, they took you down to the boat that took you over to Jost Van Dyke, is that it? Or?
Yeah, and then we snorkeled out on, like, at Jost Van Dyke. My husband found $6 actually on the bottom of the bay right there. It was hilarious. We all snorkeled, the kids and my parents snorkeled, and then they played in the surf, and we had lunch and we had drinks, and it was amazing and it was wonderful. And then while we were waiting to return on the open air bus back to the boat to go back to the ship, while we were waiting, the tour guides took us to the top of one of the buildings on the beach so that we could get a family photo with like a beautiful background.
That's nice. Was it crowded?
It wasn't crowded. Even the ship wasn't crowded.
So you don't think the ship was sailing very full?
I don't. Mm-mm.
Interesting.
Well, it sounds like a magical day at Tortola. Any advice for, I guess, it sounds like your parents are in pretty good shape to be out there snorkeling with you guys. Any advice for like a multi-generational family as far as picking out a tour like this?
I would read the details on the transfer from like how you're going to get to the destination, how you're going to get on the transport to the destination. In particular, I think the reason I like this excursion so much is because they were very sensitive to, like, my parents they're quite mobile, but like my mom's knee bothers her sometimes. So they made sure that she had a place to sit down to wait so she didn't have to stand up the whole time. They were very, very good at catering to the whole family. Also, I felt like I really do think this was a really good family excursion for multi-generational groups because it was all encompassing. They picked you up, you met in I guess it was the D lounge. They transferred you to the boat, and then they transferred you from the boat to the open air truck, which normally I think they were just going to ferry you to the beach. And then you were there. You stayed there. You could snorkel there. And they gave you like the buffet lunch, and it was sectioned off just for the family. So if they wanted to play on the beach and play in the surf, they could. Or my 11-year-old, took a nap on the lounge chair in the shade, which they provided. So I think it was a very good excursion. It was an all-day 6-hour excursion, but they took care of every need you would have.
Yeah, it sounds perfect. So, a little bit of everything for everybody and not a lot of movement around, just getting to the beach itself and then spending the day there. So let's just stick with the ports. From there, you guys go to St. Thomas, a little bit different. They've got the Senior Frogs. It's kind of, at least when we were there, was all run down. It's left over from the hurricane with the empty pool as you get on. So not quite the spectacular arrival that you have in Tortola. But what did you guys have planned at St. Thomas?
Yeah, it was a little, I guess my expectations were swapped. And so when we got to St. Thomas, the excursion, we had another all-day excursion there, but it was on a pirate boat, like a schooner. For whatever reason, Disney's ships are at the end of the pier. So it was a very, very, very long walk to get to the pirate ship that we were sailing out on. Then the pirate ship took us to 2 snorkeling destinations. So it took us to Turtle Cove, and then it took us to, now I can't remember the name of the other beach that we went to. Our boat anchored off of the beach, and you could either swim up or you could wait for them to have, they had a rubber dinghy that you could climb down this ladder and get on, and then they would transport you up to the beach on that dinghy. I think knowing that, I wouldn't have, in hindsight, booked that excursion just because there was a lot of like ladder climbing and jostling in the boat, or you had to swim a pretty decent distance up to the beach. You'd have to be a very mobile person to do that.
Chris, have you got, I mean, I know you and Seth are a little bit younger, but have you ever like talked to, when you book your cruise, have you ever talked to them about the port excursions to kind of get the, you know, when you call the Disney Cruise Line to find out what they know about the different cruises or different excursions?
Sometimes they know. Shoreside, though, a lot of times there's so many of these excursions that they've never been on. So I find that the better resource for people who are booking a cruise is actually to look at the like fine print that Disney posts. Mm-hmm. So it'll tell you like what the restrictions are. Lots of things have weight limits, and it'll tell you if there's a weight limit. Some of them will say that this is acceptable for wheelchairs or not acceptable for wheelchairs. And it will always say how active they think it is, whether it's like moderately active or for very active people. On our cruise, we had booked something that was called like a jungle trek, but it was like, don't think of this as a hike. Like, think of this as a leisurely walk. It is not a hike. Because they probably also don't want people being like, ooh, I'm going to trek a jungle. And then when you get there, you're like walking on a pathway, you know? Mm-hmm. So they do a lot to like manage expectations. In Jamaica, there's this famous waterfall that lots of people will hike. And that one is like, they will require you to wear certain types of shoes and things like that. So everything that you look out for in the excursions on Disney's site, if you click in the Know Before You Go section, you will see a whole list of things that are either telling you who it's for or who it isn't for and what they recommend. So I find that to be the most helpful pre-planning tool, more than calling Disney, because a lot of times folks in the Shoreside call center are like not aware. They don't know what these excursions exactly do beyond what's listed on the website.
And in no way did I mean to imply that you guys weren't active, Tanya. I didn't mean it that way. I was just...
Oh, no.
Yeah, throwing it out there, because I know Chris and Seth do a lot of active things. So, you know, when you have a multi-generational family, you know, and then people, not just that, but just, you know, families with younger kids, too. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's best for them.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think that's kind of why I mentioned it, because we weren't the only folks on that excursion who thought it would be a little more, I don't want to say family friendly, but friendly for anyone who might have mobility issues, because like there was someone who was like in a cast, like a boot, and then there were a couple of folks on that excursion who appeared to be older than my parents. So I did ask the captain of that schooner if when we got back, if they had something to help transport those folks back to the ship, because it was such a long walk after being out snorkeling and then swimming or climbing up and down the ladder. And they also did say that they normally have a bigger boat or dinghy, for lack of a better term, to take people in, but they somehow ended up with a really small one. So it was like rocking back and forth while people were trying to get up onto the ship. And so that's what I was like, I just think that maybe it didn't quite play out in that manner how everyone on the schooner expected, but it was still a great day. Like we got to snorkel with turtles and we had a great lunch on the beach. That was my kids' favorite excursion, of course, because they got to walk the plank.
Oh, that's awesome.
and my 11-year-old daughter got to drive the schooner, like the pirate ship. So it was a great day. I think in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have booked it with the family, the party that we had, just because it was a lot of effort to get there and get on the ship and the boat and get off of the boat. What's
that TV show where they have to race and they're going over like blowing up things over on a pool? Do you remember that TV show, guys?
I know.
Is that American Gladiators or something like that?
Yeah, and it's like
I have no idea.
And it's like a big inflatable thing, and you have to jump on the spinning thing.
Yeah, I was envisioning that as you're talking about trying to get on the scooters. It's rocking back and forth and everything else. So.
Yes. Plus, you have your gear, like you have your snorkel gear and your bag.
Okay, well, it sounds like overall, great excursions that you guys get to do at those two different ports. So, well, let's turn the ship to the ship itself. Was this your first time on the Fantasy?
Yeah, this was our first time on the Fantasy, and I was really excited because we've been on the Dream twice before that, and we knew it was a sister ship, so it was similar, but I was really excited to see what was different.
What did you think of the differences, I guess?
I really love the Fantasy a lot. I mean, the chandelier is different, and the decor is a little bit different. And I know they're practically identical, but I really did like it a lot. Sometimes, though, we would tell the kids, because we let them run kind of free. Our 11-year-old says she loves her independence on the ship. And we would say, oh, meet us at this place. But it turns out that it's maybe a different location, a little bit of a different location. That led to some lost parents and lost kids at one point. But I love the Fantasy. I think the Fantasy is a pretty fantastic ship.
Yeah, and you've been on a classic ship, or you've only been on the Dream class?
We've only been on the Dream class. We booked the Magic for May, and then it got canceled.
I do think most people like them all. I will say, like, everyone has maybe a preference of one over the other, but I've never known anyone who's just like, I categorically hate this class.
Well, I was thinking that when I ask people, it seems that they fall in love with the first ship they cruised on. So, like, if they went on the Dream class first, it seems like that's their partial. And then if they went on the classic ships, they seem to be partial to that. But I think because I love old everything, I would like the classic ships a lot. But we will have to wait to find out.
So being a big group, spending your days at sea and whatnot on this ship, how did you get in? You kind of talked about it, how like you kind of got lost a little bit, but did you guys plan on doing things together at specific times? Did everybody kind of go their own way during the day, and then you guys all met up at dinner? How did the days on the ship work for you guys?
In the morning, we'd have breakfast together, and then we would just split up, and the kids had phones, so we would message. That was fun, helping my parents set up for the app and get the messaging going. Yeah. And so we could all message each other and say, like, this is a prior, we're going to the adult area and the kids are doing what they're doing. And then if you need us, message us, or and then we'll meet back for lunch. So everybody sort of did their own thing. And we also went over, like, what was a priority. Like, if we all wanted to see a movie, then we would meet back at a specific time for the movies. We would always meet back together for the show and some sort of small activity right before dinner. Like, I literally think the best thing in the whole world is silent DJ. Silent DJ?
Silent disco.
Silent disco?
Yeah, where they wear the headsets and play different music.
Yeah, if you've never seen grandparents and grandchildren and a whole family get out on the dance floor and dance to silent disco, you're missing out.
Have you done that, Chris?
I haven't. I've seen it in the Navigator, and I've heard people talk about it, but I've never gone. I'm sort of jealous. I want to do it next time.
It is so fun. I will never miss it. Moving forward, I will not skip that.
So was it late in the evening then when they had that, or did they have it because I remember when we were on it the last time, it was like always like the last thing that they had going in the evening. So
for us, it was right before dinner.
Oh, really?
And so it was after the show and then right before dinner because there's usually like a half-hour time difference. Mm-hmm. I had to drag the kids out. I had to turn off their headphones and tell them we have to go. It's time for dinner.
So it sounds like you guys had the late dinner. Chris, you want to go with the dinner stuff?
You did first seating, or you did second seating, not first seating. Was that by choice, or did they not have any first seating available when you booked?
That was by choice, and it was for two reasons. One is that it didn't make us rush. We didn't have a big rush when we came back from the port. That was the main reason. That we chose second seating. And then the other is that we have older kids. We really wanted to leave first seating for families who had younger kids who really needed it. And it just works really well for us because we are usually night owls as a family.
Same here. We always book second seating. I agree on all of those fronts. I like seeing the show first, although I've never filled that time between the show and dinner with an activity. I always use that time to just like wander the ship or like go back to the room for a second. So now I need to think about what that would be like to put something there.
The most fun activities that we had were usually between there, and we were often wishing we had a little more time to finish them. There was a trivia that we went to. Those were usually the most fun activities that we went to. So I recommend trying some of them out.
I found that when we've had the early morning or the early dinners, that after you eat that much and going to the shows, I'll fall asleep halfway through them. So we have totally changed to the second. Well, coming from the West Coast too, it just makes it easier the second dinner to eat. And as our kids have gotten older, so we enjoy that as well. Besides the shows and trivia, was there anything else that you and your family, either you and your husband, enjoyed together, you and the kids, or you all enjoyed together?
I think it was the last night of the cruise. We went to the Skyline Lounge. Just my husband and myself. Nobody else. It was lovely. And we had a few cocktails, and the bartender found out that in total we have 5 kids, but we had 3 on the ship. And she gave us like a ton of those light up ice cubes to take back to them. We really just enjoyed that. We also, I mean, that was probably the most enjoyable activity that we did later on in the evening. But we did also take advantage of some of the happy hours that they had in the different bars and lounges.
Did you have a favorite one?
I think that my favorite was actually the Skyline Lounge. But I think it's the Meridian that's up by Palo and...
yeah, between Palo and Remy.
Mm-hmm. I like that one probably. That would be a close runner-up.
Do you guys like Meridian too, Chris?
Yeah, the Meridian, though, is like, we've only ever utilized it as like the place where the Art of the Theme Show tour meets and the place where you wait for your reservations for Palo or Remy. But I like it because it's adult only. It's also classy. They make it look kind of like all of the seats in there have like a travel vibe to them. Like the cushions look like luggage, and I think there might even be, what do you call it? Like a cigar smoking area up there, which obviously we've never used, but it is definitely the part of the ship that's adult.
Mm-hmm. There is a cigar smoking area, and like there's a big compass rose on the floor. So I do. That was my favorite before we went to the Skyline Lounge.
I think both of those are good because for my wife and I, just because we love travel so much, it gives you that classy feel. But with the compass on there, whenever we go up to the Meridian, it just makes us think about trips we've been on and trips that we want to take. I don't know. There's something about that whole, both of those bars that we just love too.
Mm-hmm. And it's so relaxing and like quiet.
Yes. No kids running around, right?
Yeah, yes.
What were some of the things that your kids enjoyed, being a little bit older?
I think one of the saddest things for my 17-year-old when this last cruise was canceled was all of a sudden she realized that it was going to be her last. On the last cruise, it was her last time in Vibe, and she didn't know it because she was expecting to go once more. Our kids really do like the kids clubs a lot. Our oldest daughter, or the oldest one at home, she's the 17-year-old, and she probably loves Vibe more than the other two love Edge and the kids clubs. But it took her a little while to find some like close friends or buddies this time. I mean, like, she's a very outgoing girl, so she likes the music trivia that they do and the games that they play, and she still like gets on group calls with the kids that she's met in all of those clubs. So she's making lifelong friends, and she loves it. And
we've kind of had the same experience too. When we went to the Mediterranean, our oldest son he still texts. He's in a text group with 3 of them that he met on that trip. And what was funny was when we went on the fantasy. One of them was actually on the fantasy trip the following spring. So they have made some lifelong friends. But that being said, then on the Dream, he had a hard time connecting sometimes too. So I guess it kind of ebbs and flows. But when it works well like that, it's just amazing, isn't it?
It really is. And I think she was at first, because she made friends so quickly on all of the other cruises, she was a little discouraged when she came. And what it really was is that there just weren't a lot of people on the ship. Mm-hmm. And so the kids that were in there were all on a vacation together.
Yeah.
And so she wasn't really like one of the one of their group. And my dad, this is where it gets cool when you have multi-generational, I guess, on vacation. But my dad sat down with her and he was like, you know, if you make a friend that you know for the rest of your life on the last day of the cruise, wouldn't it be worth going up there every day to try and make that happen? Later, she was like, I'm so glad I listened to Grandpa because I made a lot of friends.
That's cool. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, what a great story. My son was kind of the same way. We're just a 3-day cruise. There was mostly huge groups of people traveling, so it was just harder to break into those groups. So, So she's got the 1820 Society to look forward to. I'll be curious to see what she thinks of that the next time you guys cruise.
She does. She's a really sweet, sweet kid. And then our 11-year-old, she wanted to go to Edge, and she wanted to go to Edge without her brother.
I need my independence.
Yes, they're only 14 months apart, so we usually sign a waiver where he can go to Edge as well. But he is not an outgoing kid, and so he wanted to stick really close to mom and dad. So she kind of got her wish. She got to go and play without him, and then sometimes we would make him go have some fun with her. They're also kind of in that between age where the kids' clubs feel a little bit too young for them, and then Edge requires being outgoing and really trying to reach out and make friends.
It's a difficult transition there because it's definitely a lot of smaller kids in the lab and the club. So for your 10-year-old, I totally understand that. Well, before we talk about Castaway Cay, any other things about the ship, Chris, that you have questions on that we should touch on?
Did you tell us what kind of rooms you booked?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
No, I didn't. So we booked, having 5 people in our party, we had the deluxe family with a veranda. I adore that room. I think it's an amazing room. It feels spacious to me, and we really do like the veranda. There's just plenty of room. There's absolutely plenty of room in there, and we love it. We love the split bath. My mom and dad also got a veranda on the same, it was just probably 5 doors down, but their room was a lot smaller. And I guess what I didn't realize is that I thought if they were on that floor, on that one side, they were all the same type of room, but they're different types of rooms. So like they didn't have that extra Murphy bed that came down, which made their room seem to me, it seemed smaller because we are used to having the bigger room for the 5 people.
Yeah, but since it was just the 2 of them, it's probably plenty big enough.
Oh yeah.
So you ended your cruise at Castaway. Did you book any excursions? Did you have any big plans, or what was that day like for you?
All of the past times we've been on Castaway, we've done some sort of snorkel adventure. We did the Castaway 5K in September. There was a lot of crying kids on that run. My kids. It was really hot in September. And so then this time I was like, okay, fine, we won't do that. Mom won't make you do that. But we did book the Stingray adventure. That was our kids' favorite excursion aside from the pirate ship. It was really, really fun. The water was freezing cold, and I think it felt extra cold because we came from Tortola.
Warmer eastern waters.
Yeah. But it was like so cold that when your head was in the water, it felt, which it's not, I mean, it's definitely, to me, wasn't colder than the Pacific Ocean, so that's fine. It was really cold and a little bit breezy. So we braved the water and we went snorkeling just all on our own because we have our own snorkel gear. And then we did the Stingray adventure. And the Stingray adventure is so cool. You get like a tutorial at the beginning, and then you get to feed the stingrays. Like you stand around this big basket, and they know that you have food, and they come up there, and you can pet them when you're feeding them. And most of them were pregnant, and you could feel the babies moving around in their stomach.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It was unbelievable. It was so cool. And then after that, you can just swim around and snorkel with them. And I think in total, it's about a half hour long. It was awesome.
Yeah, we've booked it before, but it's always canceled for us because of like the water's too rough or something like that. So we've never actually gotten to do it, but I've heard that it's really fun. And also the stingrays that are there are wild stingrays that they just come back to the area constantly because, they get food.
A couple of them had scars on them, and they said that that was because they had, during the storms, they opened it up and let them out. It's just normal for, like, if they get brushed up against coral, they'll get a little, like, beat up. And then they heal very quickly. And so they all came back after the storm, which is the storm that we were sailing, like, on the rough sea days.
Was anyone in your party nervous about the stings?
Yes. And so I had told my son that they were debarbed, or they didn't have the barbs. So then they're doing the tutorial, and the guy said, "Who's nervous about them stinging?" And my son looked at me like, "You told me they did not have..."
You lied to me.
Yes, and I was like, that's what they told me. I didn't know. And then right after that, the instructor was like, "Well, don't worry, because they're like a fingernail, and we clip them every 2 weeks or something like that." And I was like, whew, I was about to be in big trouble. So he was really, really nervous. And I think that's why they're so brilliant about having you feed them and touch them and talk about them, because then when you're swimming with them, you're not afraid of them. Now he wants to do it again.
Right. Well, and one of the biggest excursions that you can do at Grand Cayman is called Stingray City. And those are all wild stingrays that, like, are truly, truly wild, and they all have their barbs. And I'm sure, I'll say this and someone will write the show, but I've actually never heard of anyone getting stung from them, because they're like, the only way they really sting you is if you step on them. And the big thing is, like, just shuffle your feet if you're going through the sand to make sure they know you're coming, and they'll swim away.
Yeah. And I kept trying to tell my son, I was like, they're really just like cats in the water. Like, they're rubbing up against your leg. They want you to feed them something, and then they're going to go away if they don't want to be near you.
Yeah.
I don't know that he believed me.
Well, that sounds like a really fun excursion. I'm jealous. I definitely want to do it one day. So you had a good day at Castaway, and then you sailed Port Canaveral that night.
We did.
Sort of debarkation and getting off the ship.
Debarkation was actually a lot longer than normal. I don't know why, but it took a while. It took us a while. Actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. Once we got up to the front where they scan your ID, he said that they were limiting the amount of people that were in, is it the terminal or customs?
Customs, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So by the time we got down there, the line was really short, and we just picked up our luggage. We had a ton of it, so we used Porter and went right through. We usually do preferred parking because then it's right there when you walk out. So that part was easy, but getting up to where they scan your ID took a really long time.
It definitely can be hit or miss. The bigger ships take longer for sure too. The trick that we use is, like, we just don't, because we're second seating anyway, we're like in the later group to get off the ship, and we just take our time. Because there's that rush of people who are trying, and we also never fly out the same day. We always book a hotel that night and either do like Disney Springs or Kennedy Space Center or something, just so that we don't feel this rush to get off the ship right away.
Yeah, we did not rush. And I think, that was right at the beginning because, like, I would say maybe a week and a half after we got back is when everything started to shut down. So I think that's why they were metering the amount of people that were going into the terminal area. So I never want to get off of the cruise ship and have to drive back to North Carolina, nor do I want to be in a rush to get on a plane to fly back to North Carolina. So we end our cruises with Disney World. So our vacation doesn't feel so sad that it might be over.
How many days do you spend in Disney World usually?
Usually we have our arrival day, and we do laundry at whichever resort we're staying at. And then the next day, we do the next 4 days. We do one park each day, and then we come home.
So from there, I know you guys went to the Poly, Tanya. What's your thoughts of staying at the Poly, being a DVC member? Do you like it? What are your pluses and minuses, I guess, or if there are any minuses? Maybe there aren't any. So
we had really high expectations for the Polynesian, and I was really, really excited to stay at the Polynesian. We have stayed on the monorail circle. For the hotels, we've stayed at Bay Lake and we stayed at the Grand Floridian, and we stayed at the Polynesian. And of those three, I love Bay Lake. The Polynesian, the grounds are amazing. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. We found that the feature pool we did not like very much, but we liked the alternate pool, which was heated. And we were the only people there, like the only family there. So that was kind of cool. I mean, I know the water slides are fun, but an empty pool is more fun.
More relaxing.
So that was great. I found the rooms to be a little I don't want to use the word dilapidated. I found the rooms to be a little in need of updating. On the plus side, I thought they were generously sized, and I loved the sliding door out to like lanterns and the grass area and palm trees is beautiful. But like we needed them to do some maintenance on the shower while we were there. And like the rugs could use a little TLC because they're fraying and bleached in some places. So I guess I had really higher expectations, being that it's a luxury hotel for Disney. I think the Contemporary was fantastic on the flip side of that. So if you want a hotel on the monorail, my vote is for the Bay Lake Towers or the Contemporary. The Polynesian beds were super uncomfortable.
Well, especially compared to a Disney Cruise Line bed.
Right. I know, like maybe that wasn't a fair comparison, but we've stayed in so many different Disney hotels. The Animal Kingdom Lodge is still my favorite, no matter what. But the bed was super duper hard. And my husband, who is like always positive and never complains about anything, he was like, this is the hardest bed I've ever slept on.
Wow. Well, yeah, Chris, you made a good point there. Going from a Disney Cruise Line bed to any other bed, that's a tough comparison probably too. So, well, to kind of finish up, Tanya, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your family's experience on the Fantasy, your sailing on the Fantasy. Do you have any advice as we kind of finish today as far as people planning for a multi-generational trip like you guys had?
I think my number one suggestion would be to not try to do too much, which that would be my suggestion to anyone going to anything Disney. And try to have, if you can, if you're going to do excursions or any other type of planning, have it be like all encompassing, so that, like, for example, we weren't trying to like go on this one excursion and then find a place to eat and have a lot of walking. We really kind of kept it all together so that we could really enjoy each other and our time there and not worry about how much we had to split things up.
Or decisions that you had to make halfway through the excursion as well, as far as where you want to eat and whatnot. So
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what's next for you guys then? I guess once the ship starts sailing.
We do have a cruise booked in February 2021 for the Western Caribbean. And we had a cruise booked on the Magic for 4 nights that got canceled. And it was very hard for me to not take the 125% credit. But we ended up getting the refund because we, as BBC members, we decided to use the money and buy plane tickets and stay at Aulani.
Well, that's a pretty good swap there.
Yeah. And we're going to do that in September. So, I mean, that was a really great trade, but it isn't a cruise.
Well, once again, Tanya, thank you so much for coming on today. I want to wish you and your family just all the best, and just have a great time in Aulani when you guys go over there as well. I know it's not a cruise, and I'm sorry you missed out on your one in May, but I think that's a pretty good swap between the two of them.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you.
All right, well, have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you soon next time when you get back.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Tanya for coming on and sharing her family's multi-generational sailing on the beautiful Disney Fantasy. I know cruising works that way for so many of us out there. It's just a great opportunity for multi-generational families to travel together. Our very first cruise on Disney Cruise Line was with my parents, and we all kind of went our separate ways at different times. Everybody found different things that they enjoyed doing, but it was always amazing to come back in the evening over dinner and talk about all the fun we had, whether it was port adventures or just, hanging around the ship itself. So once again, I really want to thank Tanya for coming on and touching on that topic. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, we would love it if you'd go over to iTunes and leave us a review. That helps us get our show known in the cruising, Disney cruising, and Disney community just in general. That helps other people find the show.
and it helps our show grow. If you would like to support our show, you can do so via our Patreon program. You can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information over there as to how you can support us bringing the show out to you each and every week. And we do appreciate and thank each and every one of our Patreon supporters. Well, between now and our next show, if you are heading out on your staycation, a vacation of some sort, or as I said last week, just getting the kids back into school on those Zoom calls, getting the homework done, all of us here at the DCL podcast, myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here wish you to just be well, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.